What if the cattle drives from Texas to the north were merely an outlet for Civil War frustrations? I'm Brevin Ingleson. You're in Broomtail country. Make sure you stick to the end of this video to find out what exactly I'm talking about. Let's jump in.
Ride on through time, for the cities, they're whistling wine.
If you didn't know, the cattle drive era started post-Civil War, around 1865. A lot of ex-Confederate soldiers returned home to Texas. When they got there, they found their land in disarray. There had been lots of Native American attacks, and their cattle were spread out all across the land. When the ex-Confederate soldiers got home, they found all of these wild cattle, and they started gathering them. Then they needed a place to send them. A man named Charles Goodnight is one of the founding fathers of the trails north. What these Confederate soldiers did is they then took the cattle and they pushed them using horses and big herds up north, connected them to railroads. Here's why I think this is important. Now, this is just a thesis, okay? And a thesis means that I haven't done the research yet. I have an idea. I am not saying this is 100% accurate. So before you go and make these crazy comments, remember that. I have an idea that the Confederate soldiers were upset that they lost the Civil War, otherwise known as the War of the Rebellion. And when they got home, they used the cattle drives as an outlet for their frustration. And that is why the cattle drives are so romanticized. Let's explain. So when they got home, they would be disgruntled. A lot of them were wounded. A lot of them were missing limbs. But when Southerners came back to Texas, they found a land that had largely been untouched by the Union. There were Union soldiers in Texas, I'm sure, but they were allowed to do what they wanted with their land. They gathered up the Mavericks and they pushed them north. And that's a video for another day explaining all what it was. But here's where I think it gets super interesting. It would be super interesting. It'd be interesting to see how many Southerners moved to Texas. I'm talking about from Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana. How many of those guys, there's other southern states I know, moved to Texas to participate in the cattle drives? These guys came home to almost nothing. The South was burned down. Go read about General Sherman's march through the South. Go read about different things happening in New Orleans. Those are just two examples. They came home and their economy was ruined. For one, they didn't have slaves anymore, and we all know it was a slave economy. But they came home, they didn't have anything. Now, introduce a cattle drive, employing hundreds, thousands of people over the next 30 years. That would provide an outlet for all of these disgruntled young men who had just lost the war to participate in something greater than themselves, something requiring teamwork, something requiring their combat experience, fighting the Native American tribes on the plains. Then you get into what have historians said about the cattle drive era. Honestly, I haven't found anything negative about this era at all, anywhere. And to me, that's a sign that an era is romanticized. And I think that we should be looking into that. Personally, I think the cattle drive era is awesome. But if I were to do the research on it, which I have done some, but if I were to do more research into the people that came and participated in the cattle drives and seen what exactly was going on, and I would like to look at the historiography of what historians have said about it and why, and when I think that I might just find that the cattle drive era was an outlet for Southern frustration, and that is why it is more romanticized than it should be or could be. So, I know that's not an answer to the thesis that I proposed, but it is an interesting idea, something for you guys to think about. If you haven't already, please go and like that button so that we can share this channel with more people and we can have more civil discourse. Without further ado, you're in Broomtail country. Thank you for watching.